I'm going to show you how to paint some small deciduous trees, just like this one. You'll need your 1/4 inch flat, your 1/2 inch flat, and your #1 small detail brush. You'll mix up 2 different greens, one a dark evergreen, and then another where you'll put in the viridian hue and the yellow green to make a brighter color. You'll start with your 1/2 inch flat brush, and you're going to make a small tree that's no bigger than the ferrule of your brush. I'm going to start by making an X shape with my brush by just pulling across just like this. This will give me the basic shape that I want to use. And then I'm going to make more marks just like that throughout to build in the texture of the tree. These trees are slightly stylized, and that actually can be a difficult thing to learn how to do. Notice that as I'm moving around, just filling it in, but not all of it. You don't want to end up with a big blob of paint. So it's fine if you have some white spaces showing. The edges look like branches that are sticking out. You can go in and fill in some if you feel like they look too unnatural. Now let that dry. While that's drying, I've mixed up some brown. And again, I'm going to use my flat brush to make a mark just like that for the tree trunk. Practice this a few times before you put it on your tree. So I've just got a nice thin trunk. Now I'll get the 1/4 inch flat and put in some of the secondary branches. I'm happy with this tree. For the next shape, I want to show you how to add a wide range of values so you have some nice lights and darks. Again, I'm just starting by making that shape. As you're working too, make sure you're controlling the amount of paint on your brush. If you feel like you're getting too much, you can dab it off with a paper towel. So here you see that I'm adding more dark paint to the bottom while it's still wet. I can also come in with a dry, clean brush and pick up some paint. Having a full range of values will give your tree depth and interest. Put in my trunk. Next, I want to show you what not to do. Sometimes people start with a good shape like this, but then they go in and use the edge of the brush to make some sharp marks that come out like that. Don't do that. You want it to have a nice balance between some texture, but not so much that it looks like a cactus. Here I'm laying in some yellow, using the edge of my brush to soften some edges as well as create a little more interest around the edges. Again, I'm going to go in with a dry brush and pick up some paint. And notice that I'm getting it off of the top of the tree and adding darker value to the bottom. That's because the sun is shining down on it. The top is going to be lighter, the bottom will be in shadow. Once you feel pretty confident about making these marks, you can change the shape of your tree and get away from the X shape and just start making these marks in ways that feel right to you. And I think it's helpful to look at some trees while you're doing this. Here I'm painting a poplar, which is a tall, thin tree. Again, coming back in, pulling some out, and adding some dark to this side for a shadow. The next thing I want to do is add detail. to a couple of these trees. I could leave them as they are, pretty happy with them, but I'm going to add some detail to this one. I've mixed up a color that's just slightly darker or even close to the color that I have. You don't want anything too dark. And I'm using my number 1 detail brush, and I'm making small marks that look like clusters of leaves. Control your paint, make sure you're not getting too much on there. I'm not going to make these everywhere, just in a few spots. And the other thing I like to do is add some small marks just on the outside that look like leaves, little leaf clusters. These texture and value differences will make your tree interesting. Next, I'll go in with my detail brush, my number 1, and add some of the brown paint that I used for the trunk. I can put some branches up in the tree as well as add some darkness to the trunk. Putting in a few more leaf clusters to give myself more value changes down here in the bottom and more shadow. And then I can do the same thing up here. You don't have to do this on every tree, but I'd like you to choose 2, or it can be more if you'd like, where you're adding detail and value. Make 5 trees going across the top.